I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the dude and Golan. And Golan won't be here next week, but we do have some amazing guests line up. Of course, nobody could match Golan's wit and wisdom, but we shall do our best. We have a great comedian coming on. We have a lawyer from America First Legal, one of our favorite groups, Stephen Miller's organization, as well as Gene Hamilton, who started it, will be on with us. We have a lot. But today, Mend, I woke up to the news that John Bolton's house had been raided. And it was sort of interesting because in my mind, I'm like thinking to myself, oh, great, they're making a raid. And then I'm like, oh, it's John Bolton's house. You know, it was a Republican and supposed Republican and the FBI. And this has been something that was being already investigated in 2020, but then it got shelved for a book that he released that he did not get authorization because it contained classified information. Like it's like deja vu all over again. And Trump obviously has no love lost for him. He hates him. But good for the DOJ for going after a guy like John Bolton, who has caused nothing but chaos and destruction and death in his life with the decisions he's made, with the positions he's had during his time in government. So I was very happy to see this, but I also think it gives Trump, and I'll go on just a hypothesis, is that I think Trump, or a theory, that I think Trump and the DOJ are doing this to give them cover for who they're going after next. So they could say, hey, we went after Bolton first. You're second. Just a thought.
It's a good theory. Bolton has been accused of being a warmonger. He was in the previous administration. He was advocating for the U.S. to attack North Korea, I believe.
Everywhere. There's not a place he doesn't want to attack. If you could like put on the map, you could roll a globe and Bolton would go attack. Okay? That's John Bolton. Roll the globe, attack.
You know, that freaking mustache would have prevented me from hiring him if I was in Trump's shoes in the first administration.
But you've heard the story with Trump, right? With hiring him. He hired him because remember, he was in this, and then he called his Ruffin, the guy from Vegas, the billionaire, his friend, I think not David Ruffin, he's a singer, but maybe Phil Ruffin. Right. And Phil Ruffin, I think, is the one that said, don't hire him. And he's like, I just already did. And he's like, I wish I would have spoke to you beforehand. Go on.
It's funny because my kids play a game where it's like the kid's a sniper or something and they get a message and they go, the one on the right. And you see the person take the shot. It's a little video clip they showed me. And the person goes, that's the boss's daughter. Don't shoot her. It's already too late. So that was Trump with Bolton. It's like someone said Bolton. And he said, hired. They said, don't hire Bolton. Anyway, going after Bolton, DOJ, going after anyone that's corrupt. Hey, favorite new word. Now that the adults are back in the driver's seat, nobody's above the law. So if he did something wrong, go for it. Get him. And I hope they go after everybody else too. I want to see, it's not that I want to see. The country is longing for justice. You saw Adam Schiff, Hillary, Clapper, Comey, all those guys, and Obama attempted a coup on a sitting president. They fabricated information which actually led to real world sanctions against a nuclear power, Russia. So, I mean, this is a really dangerous game that they did just for political power. So by all means, go after all of them, get them. It's going to be a travesty and an outrage. And a lot of the country will be really pissed if they don't file charges against Comey, Clapper, and anyone else that was involved. I don't think they could get Obama, although Julie Strauss told us that they can because it's not in his official duties. We'll see where that goes. I heard other legal experts saying no, but go after them. Go after all of them. Get who you can.
I think you're nailing it, by the way. I think this is the entire ballgame. I think this is a setup for all the stuff that's coming, to Judah's point, to your point, with the Comey and the Clappers and everybody else in between. I think this is basically the shot across the bow, where it is the quote-unquote Republican in the room. I mean, of course, look, he did break the rules. He did basically say, hey, I'm untouchable. I'm going to bypass clearance. I'm going to spill sensitive secrets. I'm going to do all that. And yeah, there are consequences to that. But I don't think that's the reason they went about this. I think they did this just like they did Iran as assigned to Russia, just like they did Iran as assigned to China. I mean, sure, they wanted to stop the Iran nuclear program, but also it was a big shining neon spotlight, letting everybody know this is what consequences look like under Trump. And I think this is the exact same thing. And the fact that it's a Republican, sure, it is a Republican who is critical of Trump, But still, as Judah said, this is kind of like, hey, we went after one of our own. So I wonder who's next. And it also is, it's everyone's watching this because I mean, I when I wrote to Judah, when I said, did you see the Bolton thing? My first word was crazy. And he said, yeah, like none of us saw that coming. So this is one of those deterrence moves that really is going to open eyes and make everyone walk a little bit more on eggshells, which is a good thing right about now.
I would
Great
like
thing.
to, I know the our friends at the DOJ watch the show and in the administration. Liz Cheney should be next. Put her in the mix. She's a Republican. She did the January
This is
6th
men's
committee,
version of
which was-
Russia. If you're watching,
Man, that was classic. I absolutely love that. I definitely needed that laugh. But who's the cartoon character that he reminds me of? Was it Yosemite Sam? Who is it that John Bolton?
It is Yosemite Sam, right?
Yeah, that he looks like
Got the
Yosemite.
mustache and the gun,
Yeah,
and
that-
he's
right,
crazy, and he's out there killing everybody.
He's Yosemite Sam. And
hey, funny
again,
thing
I
is,
wanna
by the
get
way,
back-
do you know that the mustache is one of the reasons why Trump hired him? He literally used the
Seriously?
words. He said, and I quote, this is back in the day. He said,
Get
strong
me the guy with the
mustache,
mustache.
strong words, strong image, made for TV.
You know, actually, I did hear something. I heard something. You're right. I heard that Trump hired him because he knew, and he said this. He goes, any of our adversaries that I go
when
into
he's
negotiate
behind
with,
you.
they're going to see that nutball who wants to bomb everything, and they're going to be like, negotiate with this guy
They're going to
because
see
the other
Sam
guy is
Elliott
crazy.
over here. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. And, we're talking about it. I don't think we've ever witnessed such a transparent White House. And with that often comes, listen, have they made mistakes with messaging? We'll bring that up 1,000 times over, 100%. But today, the DOJ, Todd Blanche, released everything from the Epstein files with Ghislaine Maxwell. And I know this won't be enough for people. And she in no way implicated Trump.
Didn't implicate.
Right. She said he had absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm paraphrasing in her French
She
voice.
said that he never
Said
acted
abused
inappropriately.
anybody. Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
She never witnessed anything of any sort of bad behavior. And so we got to give it to Todd Blanche, and all the files are out. Obviously, it's a little early, so we haven't had a chance to read them. Not that I will read them, actually. It's probably quite the read and quite the audio recording. So that's all released. And Mend, I know you're happy about this, but my question to you is, will this be enough for people? Because they're also handing it over to to the House. So will this be enough is it ever going to be enough for the rabbit hole people that go into full on conspiracy mode? They'll be like, did she say that so she could get a pardon from Trump? I could see all the responses already lined up.
So they moved her to a different jail, and this is a quid pro quo. I mean, 1,000 things like that. Ultimately, if you're talking about conspiracy theorists, they love stuff like this because it just fuels. There is no winning with conspiracy theorists because disproving the conspiracy is, that's part of the conspiracy. There is no way around it. Redactions equals suspicion. Credibility equals incredulity. Like, there is no winning.
There has to be a new word that's created because obviously we all know that word was created by the CIA, the word conspiracy theory, and a lot of conspiracies have been proven to be true. So, whether it's foul, there's so many things. I don't want to use that word conspiracy theory necessarily, Golan, because I think it tarnishes the actual things that have come out that have been proven. But this is like the other side of this is the other thing. This is the Alex Jones broken clock theory of being right once every 10 years if you say enough stuff type of crowd, if that makes sense.
Can we call them the paranoid fantasy peddlers? Like, there are plenty of great phrases
Smut
that we
peddlers.
could use.
Smut
But smut peddlers indicates that they are deliberately selling something. You're talking about the people who are pushing the people who are conspiracy theorists. Tucker's not a conspiracy theorist. He is a liar. He's just saying whatever is going to get clicks. So he doesn't actually believe in the conspiracy. The delusionists who he's talking to are using him as a source. Well, Tucker showed me whatever lie he showed them, whatever fantasy he deliberately spun to get them moving. And those cover-up junkies just take it like heroin and go, put it into my veins. I'm addicted to seeing how everything's hidden in plain sight. And so the more those people do it, the more they're going to gobble it up. These grievance hunters. They're great. We should come up with a good other alternative name for these people. I love that.
Phrasing,
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
here's the bottom line.
No, Mend, I want to ask you a question before you go, because this is really, it's about you. Because a lot of we stopped discussing this on the show because the two of us would go at it and it was interrupting the show. And finally, Mend came to his senses yesterday and admitted that all the people I tell him about to not trust. But I'm asking you as the person that, and I have no issues with this, that you were the most skeptical, you were the most that wanted to hear things, you were the most inquisitive of either me or Golan. Does this satisfy you?
You know, I don't know all the contents in it, but it's definitely the right step. What we want to see is transparency. We want to see them releasing the recordings, releasing whatever they have. There is a big one out there, and that is we know that Epstein had pinhole cameras everywhere, and there's a cache of videos. So where is that and what's going on with that? As far as Ghislaine Maxwell coming out and stating clearly under testimony that she did recently in this interview with the DOJ that Trump was always respectful and didn't abuse or engage in any of the nefarious activities that were going on there. I believe that. I never thought he was a part of it.
No, not that part. That's not what I'm asking. You're bringing up stuff that they cannot get released, that judges are not releasing, that New York judges aren't releasing,
Right.
Florida judges aren't releasing.
So what I'm saying is that
that
this
can't
is,
be on Trump.
it's
And
not.
also, even if they were willing to release it legally, you're also talking about what likely is a bunch of underage girls being
No, they would have to
sexually
redact. They
abused
would
on
have to redact
camera.
the kids'
So
names.
how many hours of this are we meant to release? And what about the victims and all the rest? Even asking about the pinhole cameras is already feeding into the conspiracy. I'm sorry to
No,
say.
so what I'm saying is that we know the guys had pinhole cameras all over his Manhattan house, definitely on this island. He was definitely up to something, and there was girls being abused there either by him or by him and other people. Those are the facts of the case, right? And if I'm not asking,
well, not of the Ghislaine Maxwell case. No, that's not the facts. But I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you that there weren't other.
Right. She was convicted of facilitating underage minors to go to his island and be abused by him. That's what she's in jail for, right?
Yes.
Are there other unindicted co-conspirators? Do we
No.
know about that? There's none.
No, they're not.
Right. So the DOJ doesn't have to release the videos that they got from his compound, but they need to release a report on it, something. And I think that would be important. And you don't divulge anybody's names or information. And I got it. It's not the DOJ that has, I don't think it's the DOJ that has the ability to do that right now because everything is being blocked by judges.
And
You're
that's
correct.
my point too.
So from Trump's standpoint, when I'm viewing this thing, and I was very critical of the entire thing, and I was very adamant that whoever was involved should be brought to justice. The steps that he's taking does satisfy me. I'm saying yes.
That's all I want to hear.
That's it. For me, that's great. I want to see more of that. Keep on doing that. Great. That's good.
That's the answer. I think Golan, is that fair to say? That's the answer.
I think it's fair to say, but remembering, as you like to point out, Mend is not the normal. Mend is one cut above those people, and
just a cut though. Just a cut.
Just a cut. Yeah. Hey, don't worry. It's a prime rib cut. But here's the thing: is when you are someone who has bought into a narrative, forget that you bought into it. If you were in any way vocal about it, if you at any point posted about it or spoke about it, now there's a sunk cost. Because now if you go, turns out, never mind, you look like an idiot. And by the way, you might not look like an idiot, but in your mind you will. And so now it is too late. It's almost like now, despite knowing otherwise, you have to dig your heels in. When I show the video of Charlottesville, of Trump not saying that the neo-Nazis were good people, of saying the exact opposite of that to people, they go, well, no, there's other context. They cannot accept it despite their eyes seeing it happen in front of them. It's the story. There was a professor speaking about the Israel-Gaza war, and he was saying that he found that his students who didn't know what was going on and just parroted what other people said about Gaza and then discovered that Israel were the good guys, they didn't change their tune. They dug in harder because at that point it would be like, well, then was I supporting terrorists? I can't admit
can I
that.
talk? You're raising such a good point, and it's without realizing it, but it's a brilliant point. I know sometimes say that. The only reason I say that is because it starts to make me think about my own life, and I think all our own lives. and especially when you're on the creative side, and I know you'll understand this, go on. When you're younger and you write something, let's say it's a script or whatever it is, it's your baby, and somebody could say to you, you know, you really need to change this up a little bit. And you would rather lose that script than take the help. And it's part of being younger, and then you mature, and then like with us, you know, it's like, hey, I meet go on, you know, and I'm like, we want to do this, and it wasn't the right time, and finally one day we figured, let's go and do this thing, and we all take each other's suggestions, like men that, and there's something about growing up or mentally that you have to be able to willing to let go and say, I was wrong. I could look at so many of those things in my life, right? I mean, can't you all? And look at and say, I should have asked for help in that situation. You know, or to quote Jerry Maguire, I should have done the dance, you know? And if that makes any sense, what I'm saying to either of you.
Yeah, 100%. It 100% does. I've seen it in my own life anecdotally. I've certainly seen it online. I've seen it in debates that I've had, in arguments that I've had. I've seen it when I'm listening to people being interviewed who clearly know that what they're saying is wrong, but cannot stop because they're already barreling towards something. Their identity is built upon it. This is absolutely something that I have seen 1,000 times over.
So I take issue. The only thing I take issue with is that just because some conspiracy theorists buy into something, and I happen to have concerns with the same thing, that doesn't make me a conspiracy theorist.
Nobody ever accused you of that.
I know, but there's a lot of that
Again,
going
you're
on.
an honest broker, and other people are not.
Right. We're saying to
difference.
you, what we're saying to you is your brain has matured to be able to separate.
I look at anything, and I don't care what team it's on. I don't care what side it's on, and I look at it and I try to ascertain whether it's just or not. And if it's not, then I would, you know, lay into it, and I would have issues with it. So the Epstein thing, as any parent would and should, I had issues with that. There was a guy who was wealthy. We don't know how or why he got wealthy. He had these islands. He had leaders of countries and top tech guys and Bill Gates and all these other guys, you know, making these pilgrimages to his island. And we also know that he had underage kids on his island that he was abusing himself. Were these other people abusing them? Those are all valid questions to ask without getting into a conspiracy theory.
Nobody.
And that's where I was coming from on this whole thing. I got you.
You know what? I'm gonna say something that probably makes me sound like an a-hole. Okay.
Let's hear it.
I know that you believe that you care about the Jeffrey Epstein story. And this is going to sound like I'm not taking you to task. I think this belongs to most people. I think that people have been convinced that they care. Now, that doesn't mean that they care about the victims. I think you genuinely care about the victims. I think we all do. Right. I think the idea of elites molesting people, obviously, none of us are for that. We're all against that. The Epstein story itself and where it's evolved into in our public discourse, I don't think anybody,
especially towards Jews,
especially towards Jews, especially towards Trump, especially towards really anything that has to do with continuing the conversation the way it's been continued, being a Mossad agent. I mean, just the ridiculous kind of silliness that where it's reached. I think that we're at a point now where we're not chasing justice. Epstein's dead. Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison. If we're going after Trump, okay, but Trump's been cleared, and we know he was in the book, and we know that he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. Like, that's not it. So are we looking for a black book full of list of names? Well, according to the investigations, both in the previous administration and in this administration, whether you don't trust the other one or you do trust this one, there isn't one. So we don't have a client.
And going
list.
back to Bill Barr. And going
Bill
back
Barr
to Bill
and
Barr.
Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction is for a specific thing. All of that means we're not chasing justice. We're just chasing a story. It's a seamy, like, it's like reading the National Enquirer. You're just like, ooh, I just can't wait to see how gross this gets. It's like fantasy peddling. Like, we need to keep the Epstein story alive forever. Why? Because either it's a ghost that proves the elites are bad, or it's a ghost that proves that the Republicans are bad, or the Democrats are bad, or Trump is bad, or whatever. But really, it's a terrible story. We all don't like it. We don't like the people who are abused, etc. But to care about it enough for it to affect politics, enough for it to affect your trust in Trump, or for you to affect your trust, if you're on the Democrat side, in Bill Clinton or whatever it is. It's not any of those things. You've been convinced it is. And so that's my opinion. I think that people don't care about it. They care about the idea of it.
So because, tell me if I'm reading this correctly, because the conspiracy theorists are latching onto this, the conspiracy theorists on the right, the Tucker Carlsons and all of those lunatics, and the Democrats on the left that are using it as somehow a thing against Trump. So because everybody is disingenuous about their concerns for this thing, and I believe that is the case, are you saying that we should just ignore it?
No, he's not. I don't think he's saying that at
Not in the
all. I
least.
think he's saying
So
saying
then
have
what
I
is
think we
faith.
should just go ahead, Judah. Go ahead.
I think I just want to close out this subject. I think what Golan is saying, what I'm saying, which you've already said to, is they're doing as much as they can right now.
They
And
are. I
that's
believe
it.
that. I believe that. You know, my wife says something to me constantly, and it's a really wise advice. Just because someone else does something that's crappy doesn't mean that we should change who we are and how we behave. So just because Tucker and Schiff and Schumer and all these lunatics are out there on both sides using this thing as a tool to try to hurt Trump doesn't mean that us as human beings, me as a dad, shouldn't be concerned that there was this guy who was abusing children, and for some reason he was let off the hook a few times. I personally think he was a CIA asset. That's why our Justice Department let him go, and I think there's even testimony to that.
No, there's actually not. That's been debunked. Yes,
there is not.
You've
And
brought
by
that
the
up
way,
before.
whether he is or isn't, and whether he is Mossad or not Mossad or anything else, I don't care, and I don't think anyone else does either. Let me be clear. I want justice for the victims. Okay, Epstein was a predator. Maxwell was convicted. Every survivor deserves their day in court. But just like the Weinstein thing, right? This is a court case, and it should go through that process like a criminal act, right? There are courts, there's documents, there's facts. Right now, it exists in the public discourse to sell outrage. If this was a case that was going on and people were following it like, I don't know, any of these other crazy cases that existed. What happened to baby Jessica when she fell down a well? Like, whatever. It's just something to sell newspapers.
Imagine if we chased the Butler shooter like we chased the Epstein thing. Like you're talking about, like I always say to people, keep your eye on the prize. And men, that's was the whole point in setting up a conspiracy theory by the CIA, was putting out stories to deflect us from the actual truth. It was the whole, in a sense, basis of the X-Files. That this is what the X-Files was about, was you put a story here, it's sleight of hand is what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying
what
you're
you're
incorrect.
saying, everything that you're saying, it sounds like we're all on the same page.
Yeah, we are.
We are
Okay,
all on the
great.
same page. The only difference is
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it. Justice should be
Yeah.
quiet. It should be serious. It should be final. It should be based on facts. It should not
Yeah.
be performative. It should not be
Yeah.
weaponized. I
Which
don't
is
need
great.
it to be in,
Which
I
is
need it to be in the
I think-
courtroom. I need it to be in the investigation,
That's
law
why I
and order,
just-
right? I do not want it to be in my tabloids. I don't need it to be a forever headline. And I certainly don't need to hear about who else theoretically may be Mossad and Trump and all
Right,
the other
right.
shtuyot,
Right, but
which is Hebrew for nonsense, I need to hear about.
right. So and that's it. We are all on the same
Okay.
page,
Great.
100%.
Let's move
And
on.
that was my basic question to you: was, do you trust that that they're doing as much as they can?
Yes.
And
And the answer is yes. The
That's
answer
what-
is
then-
yes.
then-
You're
and-
seeing stuff. This is the first batch of stuff coming out, and I like it. I like it. It's transparent. You're releasing the recordings of these interviews that they did with her. Fantastic.
end the story.
End of story.
Um,
Moving on.
Ended this part of the story for now, and we will see what brings us forward. I know you wanted to discuss something that you saw in the Guardian. So there's more blood libels coming out. One of them is the United Nations this morning. You can't make this. You just really can't. Just so everybody knows, there's more food going into Gaza right now than there is into most towns in the United States of America. Okay? There are more starving people, or what do they call it? People with food insecurity
Yeah.
than there are in
everything's
Gaza
insecurity.
right now, with the amount of airlifts of food that and COAG and all these organizations
Kogat.
that and the
Kogat.
COGAT. I'm sorry. Thank you. I always like to be corrected, and impossible to remember all these acronyms. And but man, this morning the United Nations come out and says starving kids. There's officially It's officially a famine, and I'm like, did I miss something? Now you're saying there's officially a famine after all the food that's been brought in? What and COAG? How do you pronounce it? Sorry.
Kogat.
Is like
Yeah.
is totally disputing that. They're an American-based firm that's been doing this. And men, what do you do?
Well, let's start off with The Guardian. So The Guardian put out a piece, which is journalism malpractice. They allegedly got their hands on an internal classified Israeli document that purports to show that the Israelis could only account for a small percentage of the combatants killed in Gaza. So they're basically saying that out of the 1,000 dead, according to Hamas, only 7,000 of them are confirmed by Israel to be combatants. And what they're saying by that is that 85%, the remainder, the balance, is civilian casualties, which would make this one of the bloodiest conflicts for civilians in modern history. And the reason that this is false and liable and just deceitful is that what they're not taking into account, the 7,000 that the Israelis have on that list, those were confirmed targets that they went after. They had the name, they knew where he was, and they killed him. What they're not taking into account is every time they go into a tunnel that's filled with Hamas's guys in Gaza and they kill 50 guys in there, they may not know which guys, what their names are and who they were, but they were all bad guys with guns in a tunnel and they killed them all. When they go into a village or a town and there are guys booby trapping buildings and Israel kills them all, they don't know their names. They may not know, all the details about those guys, but they do know that they were bad guys. So The Guardian is taking a small sliver of data and then extrapolating from that everything else is civilians, which is completely deceitful. And me, not being a mainstream journalist, I'm able to see through this thing. Anyone can see through this thing. But The Guardian ran with the piece, and now it's in Haaretz and CNN, and it's BBC, and it's all over the world saying that the civilian to combatant ratio is something like 12 civilians for every one combatant or something
Which
like
is
that.
an absolute lie.
And they're claiming
it's an
Israel is
absolute
the one
lie.
that they got the data from. Right.
You know how
Not
you know
only
it's
is
a
it an
lie?
absolute lie, but okay, go ahead, Jude.
Yeah, I'm just going to say to you, you know how you know it's a lie? Do the math. By that math number, there would be no Gazans left.
The bottom line is this. Israel, and Bibi said this the other day, the prime minister of Israel. If Israel wanted to commit a genocide, they would have done it on October 8th. Period. End of story. They took out the entire Iranian
And it would have taken
regime,
about 2 hours.
all of the top guys and all of their missiles and all of their everything in 12 days. They
And he
took
was
out
let
all
go on
Hezbollah. I mean, what are you talking about?
There's a handful of lies that are coming out right now. This is one of my favorites. Is the what was it? 85% of the people being killed. I mean, it's not only is it so stupid, but just look on October 7th at all the quote unquote non-Hamasniks that crossed over, raping, killing, looting, beheading, kidnapping, whatever. It's just it's one of the stupidest lies because it's so obviously false. But that's not my favorite. My favorite new lie is the UN saying famine, because not everyone realizes this. And oh man, listeners, this one's for you. The UN changed the definition of the word famine just now in time to say that there is a famine happening in Gaza. They changed the definition of the word famine. They changed how they measure it. So
That's the big one.
If you are saying there's a genocide, you know what? Genocide has a meaning. It has to do with intent and all that. But you know what? That means looking into someone's heart. So I can debate with you. I think the Israelis are trying to kill, and you can say, I think they're not. And okay, we can argue. Okay. We can see by their action that they're not doing it, but you can disagree and we can argue. Famine is like baking versus cooking. I'm a baker. My wife's a cook. And so as a baker, if it's a quarter cup, it's a quarter cup and it better be level. It is a science. It is not an art. And famine is a science. There is a specific mathematical equation. It has to do with how many people are dying per day based on starvation metrics. And the starvation metrics are very specific. They have to do with height and age and this and that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of it because it's so ludicrous and long, and the loopholes and twisting themselves into pretzel-like formations to say Israel is the villain. I'll just use one. Okay, I'll just use one. The standard has always been what's called UHZ, which is weight for height Z-score. Okay, and the weight for height Z-score basically is exactly what it sounds like. Weight based on height. Okay. They have changed that to be what's called MUAC, which is the mid-upper arm circumference measurement. In doing so, which is far more inaccurate and has not been used for that reason, but it is much easier to call a famine call a non-famine a famine if you are using this false metric. So they have deliberately done that. You need to have a death rate exceeding 2 per 10,000 per day. There has to be 30% child malnutrition. There has to be 20% of households that are dying. None of that stuff is happening, even according to Hamas numbers. So a famine, even according to the liars who are making stuff up on a daily basis to vilify Israel, isn't happening. But it is if you make up new definition. And the UN, again, I'm not going to go into the whole thing where they changed it to IPC methodology versus other methodology. You can look all this up. It's insanity. But that's like me saying, you murdered me. And you're like, but you're alive. And I'm like, but my definition of murder is that you insulted me. So now you can go to jail for first-degree murder. It's insane.
I love that. I love Golan saying, I'm not going to get into all of the things, but he managed to get into all the things. So great work on that, Golan. And it's extremely important what you just said, because I was not familiar with that.
Yes.
And I'm extremely happy that you brought it up so precisely, so with such precision. And this goes back to what I keep on saying. There needs to be a messenger talking about this stuff, because when you hear somebody like Golan or you, man, I compliment you all the time on your messaging. It makes sense right there. I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God. Yeah, when you eat, just when you think about it, you're not thinking about the belly, you're thinking about the arm. You're thinking about
I'll break it down in the most simple form.
Please
what
do.
Golan just said. One, they changed the way they measure. They went to a much less accurate measurement to figure out famine, specifically so they could vilify Israel, because they realize they can't win fighting, they can't win the war, and they can't win by trying to demonize Israel at the UN. The only thing they can do is generate public outrage. And if the UN, this giant trusted organization, says there's a famine, there must be a famine. Here's the bottom line. They changed the way they measure, one. Number two, Israel sends in X amount of calories per day to support life. And if you take that number, and if they're sending in more calories than the people need to survive, that is not Israel's problem. That is Hamas's problem for stealing the aid and hoarding it. Period. End of story. We don't have to get crazy with all the different measurement techniques and everything else. Just know that this report is based on BS. They changed the way they measure, number one. And number two, Israel sends in more than enough calories to support life. There are videos, countless videos on X of the people of Gaza dumping out flour because they don't want to use this flour sack to carry other stuff. So they're literally dumping food in the desert so they could use those bags for other things. The Spanish government, your government over there, sent in, I saw this video on X, they sent in expired food and ham, bacon to the people of Gaza. The people of Gaza were freaking out. Like, why are they sending us pig? But the idiots in Barcelona and Madrid don't know what the hell they're doing. It's all performative. So there you go.
I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they sent a lot of bacon in.
I want to move on quickly to just one or two last things, and both of you go quickly on this, is Trump is basically saying right now, Chicago, you're next as far as bringing in the National Guard or federalizing the police force. And the people of Chicago.
I think Boston is next.
I thought it was Chicago. But
it's Mayor Wu, this demented mayor of Boston, and she refused to cooperate with ICE, and they said they are going to flood that city.
No, we're talking about two totally separate things.
Sorry, my bad.
You're talking about with ICE, and I'm referring where this, so for instance, today they released this Abrego Garcia from custody. A leftist judge released a murderer onto the street, an accused wife beater on the street, an accused tormentor on the street who Van Holland went to go visit in prison and have lemonade with.
They brought him back. They forced them to bring him back. Right. Part of his release, he has to take anger management class, and he's not allowed to contact any of his buddies that are in MS-13.
Yeah, it's just insane.
He's just a dad. He's a dad from Maryland.
What you're referring to is ICE. What I'm referring to is Trump go on after saying to the people in Chicago, I got your back.
Chicago, you're next. Maybe New York, maybe Boston after that. But he's already targeting which cities are lawless, just like DC has been, and where the local government is not doing their job to quell that lawlessness. So I say, let's go, let's ride.
Yeah. Bring it in. Bring it on.
Ride or die with Trump and the Canadians, your favorite people, decided today to drop most of the U.S. tariffs. Who saw that one coming?
Called it. Remember I said, we said the best they could do, the best thing you could do is make a deal. You're not going to be able to stand up to this. You put tariffs on our stuff. We're going to put tariffs on your stuff. If there's a trade deficit, we're going to make that equal. And the Canadians grandstanded, we're not going to give in to the evil Trump. He's a racist. And here they are, kissing his ass. Welcome to the table.
Right. Well said. And exactly what you were referring to before was that with ICE, they're threatening to go into Boston. But what's amazing, what we're witnessing is they don't give a crap. They want to they want to save American lives. And that's all that matters to this administration. You gotta love Stephen Miller. I mean, Stephen Miller, we know, is probably writing this is Stephen Miller, and God bless him for having the courage of his convictions and not giving a crap whether he's liked or not. There's very few people in Washington that have that type of courage, like Trump and Stephen Miller and Rubio. I mean, look at what Rubio is just on a tear, the 6,000, going after the International Criminal Court, sanctioning their prosecutors and their lawyers at the UN. And for people that are not familiar with this, just quickly, we do not recognize The Hague. Okay, we do not recognize Golan, this UN corrupt court. Oddly enough, neither does Russia. So there are a few other places that do not recognize The Hague, or the people that really started a lot of this anti-Israel stuff. They're the ones that have criminalized Bibi and just above and beyond every anti-Semitic thing you could possibly do. Yeah, anti-Semitic. I mean, there's no
I
other way
find
of
it
saying
interesting, by the way, that you're mentioning this is one of those corrupt organizations, and it is absolutely corrupt. If you ever want to look into a corrupt guy, look up Sadiq Khan. Enjoy yourself. The list goes on and on and on and on in terms of what he did in his personal life, in terms of who he defended as part of the court, in terms of what he did now, in terms of recent stuff. I won't go into all of it because it'll detour us for half an hour. But I will say that just like the famine thing, where even Hamas's own lying numbers don't back up a famine, the ICC and the ICJ, the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, they actually, as an organization that is anti-Israel and was looking to vilify the Jews, despite what you've heard on the TV and on the internet, never found that there was a genocide and said there, in fact, was not a genocide. They did say that there was the opportunity for South Africa to bring a case about genocide. So they said plausible. It was plausible for them to bring a case. But once they reviewed the case, they said no. And everybody lied about what they actually said, just like Charlottesville. They left out the important parts and told you the lie. When the judges and the people who ran that court were then interviewed later and asked about it, they said, no, that's not what we meant. You're taking a legal definition that we had to apply for the case to go forward and determine that it does not apply here. And there is no genocide. So even that group who was anti-Israel didn't back up the narrative. It's crazy. But if you talk to people online right now, talk to many people in real life, smart people, educated people, they will tell you, no, the ICC and the ICJ found that Israel was plausibly persecuting genocide. It's not true.
And it's more than not true. There's a reason we don't recognize them. This is a bunch of corrupt individuals, no different than many of our court systems here in the United States. But they're on steroids of corruption. Yeah. I want to close up this episode.
We got one more.
One more?
The last thing is...
You want to go to the Smithsonian thing.
Wait, we didn't talk about Chicago. We brought it up, but then we shifted. Can we mention something about Chicago real quick?
No. Men wants to talk about the Smithsonian.
All right.
We could jump in Chicago and then finish up on Smithsonian. All
right, fair enough.
Because saying to Golan, do it shortly, it will be here another 62.
I have been adhering to your "you have 1 minute" policy for a while.
Yeah, Chicago's it's the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's the most notorious crime capital in America. If he can do this, proof of concept, baby. Let's go. That's all I was going to say.
Not just that.
And here's why it's important.
It could turn red.
That's what I was going to say. Is that it's a opportunity for the president to send in troops and show the people of Chicago that have been voting blue for the last 60 years what a leader who actually cares about them, what a conservative, what a Republican would do for that city.
Okay, you're
They
taking
couldn't
too
do it.
much time. Get into your Smithsonian
So the
That's
story.
right. That's
Smithsonian
right. That's right.
story is that, the media is going crazy saying that Trump is trying to erase history at the Smithsonian. And in reality, he's just reversing a destructive woke takeover of the Smithsonian. For instance, the new Benjamin Franklin exhibit on his innovations includes a whole section on slavery with assumptions but no proof that slaves assisted him with his inventions. Another example with the obsession of slavery is a National Portrait Gallery. Every founding father's description includes a statement on slavery. For example, the description of Thomas Jefferson includes a statement, although Jefferson once called slavery an abominable crime, he consistently enslaved African Americans, including his late wife, Martha's half-sister. So I guess his late wife, Martha's half-sister, was also his slave. Sally Hemings, with whom he had several children. So I have no idea what the hell's going on there. I don't even know why that's important to bring up when you're talking about the guy. But yes, there is a history of slavery. That should have its own dedicated section of the museum, but you don't need to paint everything in the museum through the lens of slavery. They had a painting depicting a transgender Statue of Liberty. They have another painting, which is a migrant climbing the American flag. And instead of the stars, it's got the stripes. He's climbing on the stripes. But instead of the stars, it's got what looks like the skyline. So he's climbing over it as if it's a wall. And it says, migrants watch the 4th of July fireworks through the border wall. American founders feared non-white immigration. Another exhibit is the examining the career of Anthony Fauci, a mass murderer, the guy who killed more human beings than I think almost anyone in history, allegedly. And another one is commemorating the act of illegal border crossing. And it's a whole portrait gallery of where they're commemorating the act of people breaking into the country. So the Smithsonian also came up with a digital version of the museum. They started to do this searchable museum initiative. So you would think that it would start with some of the greatest moments in history, like the moon landing or passing of the Constitution or anything, natural history. No.
Can I ask you, Mend? I don't know a lot about this story. You seem to. I'm
He's been
genuinely
thinking
wondering.
about it for 3.5 days.
I know, so I'm genuinely wondering. Is it all liberal stuff or is it bipartisan? Is it only like if they're going to do, will they do an RFK? I'm talking about RFK Sr. Would they do an RFK piece where they're like, he might have looked like a saint, but actually he authorized illegal wiretaps on Martin Luther King Jr. Are they doing it across the board where they're also bringing up the kind of ugly, overlooked histories everywhere? Or is it just in the woke side of things? I'm genuinely asking.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Valid question. And I would be equally against it if it was across the board, because I don't think it's the job of our nation's institutions to teach our kids to hate their own country. That is how you destroy a society. But no, it is not. It is all one way. So they went exclusively one way. The first part of this digitization thing started with slavery. Everything is painted with the brush of slavery. And I believe that the woman who's now running the Smithsonian is a former head of there's another museum about slavery. So she just brought all of her stuff there and said, you know what, I'm just going to redo what I did at that other museum and turn this whole thing into about slavery.
This is how you get all the
and
college kids wearing Che Guevara t-shirts because
No,
they don't actually know the history. But so I'm wondering, no, Amanda, I'm actually asking. So if we have people who, if the exhibit, I'm just thinking of a museum specifically, if the exhibit is about the founding fathers and it's about the founding of the country, then obviously it doesn't make sense to then bring up every infraction they ever had. If there is, and I'm asking you, if there is an exhibit where it is specifically talking about the checkered history or the complicated story of XYZ, you'd be okay with that, right?
Yes. Yeah, I would be okay with that. But
then you're consistent, and I agree with you 100%.
What we're seeing here is the Smithsonian has been overtaken by ideological people that are as woke as they come. They hate America, and they're in our national treasure, our institutions, and they're rewriting history. And when I say rewriting history, is that they're only doing it selectively, and they're only doing it from a slant to hate America. It is not, this is just part of the story that we need to tell. The Smithsonian is the one who teamed up with the New York Times on its 1619 project, which is the most anti-American, made-up nonsense that was ever produced. And that was produced by the New York Times. And the Smithsonian teamed up on
Okay,
with them
so
on that.
I really want to thank you. I know you've been storing this story for 3
Wanted to
days,
get it out.
and I do appreciate how much it bothers you. Especially, remember, kids. When you're in 8th grade, everybody goes on a field trip to Washington. The Smithsonian might be one of those places that they attend, and they will be. Another part of their indoctrination. So I think it's great that you are bringing this up. The only thing I'll say about the Smithsonian is they have a great channel on television. That's where my Mayday Disasters is sponsored by. But you're 100% correct to care about this subject. It's extremely important.
And I'll just say this before we wrap on that, which is I think it's really important that you bring it up, because the idea of continuing to undermine things that should be celebrated, there's always some sin somewhere. There's always some infraction. There's always some mistake. Nobody
But
is
it's not just that.
perfect.
This is made up. This is made up sin.
But let's assume it's not. Let's assume it's not. Just imagine, just take it outside the museum. Just imagine if this was applied to other places in the world. Imagine if you walked in, let's say you are a big fan of Planned Parenthood, for instance, okay? Let's say you think it's wonderful that Planned Parenthood exists, and you walked in and the first sign you saw was Planned Parenthood. Welcome to Planned Parenthood. We used to love sterilizing poor black women. Come on into the lobby. Like, imagine anytime. It doesn't matter in what walk of life. This is clearly something that would undermine. So here, they're undermining the United States. They're undermining our history. They're undermining our leaders. They're undermining our founders. And
Which
it's a
is
deliberate choice.
Well, this is why I always say to people, it's like we have to win the universities back because, like I always say, everybody says, uh, the history is written by the victor, right? By the winners, right? By the victors. The problem is we lost the universities. So we lost. We did not have victory in the university system, and everything we're witnessing today is a direct result of that. So every Republican out there, the only way we could save our future is by taking back the campuses. And that's why the Trump administration, with what they are doing with holding funding, might actually make a dent in that. But it's also why we need to keep power for at least 12 years to ensure that we reverse this mass indoctrination that has occurred. Man, I see you want to chime in for.
Yep. All of this ties back to something that Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB director, explained, I think it was in the 60s, called ideological subversion. He lays out clearly how the enemy breaks a nation like America. And this is a plan from the KGB. It was a 30 or 40-year plan. And they start out by indoctrinating some soft-minded college-age kids that are confused. They grow up and become professors. They then indoctrinate a whole class. They become the leaders of industry, which is like the people running the Smithsonian now. He goes, and by that point, you are infected and you can't get it out because it's in every one of your institutions. If you just look at DEI, all of this, the woke agenda, and these leaders that are going along with it, the CEOs of companies, and it's torpedoing the companies. Look at what happened to Bud Light with their Mulvaney fiasco. Look what's happening to Cracker Barrel with their idiotic policies. So he lays it out. We're going to put a link in our Substack to the video of Yuri explaining how it works in 1960 something. Check it out. Everybody should watch this.
And by the way, on this show, I explain this in detail, and I'll say it in 4 sentences. And I want everyone to remember this, then watch the Yuri video for more detail. 4 sentences.
I'm thinking about how long those 4 sentences
4
are.
sentences. Step 1, and I cannot ever shake this. Step 1 is demoralization. 20 years, slow breakdown of society. That's what Judah was talking about, putting everyone in the universities, putting everyone in all the spaces that undermine the confidence in the nation. Step 2.
That was a paragraph, just for the record.
That's 1 sentence. Step 2, destabilization. That is 2 to 5 years. That one goes a little faster. You're talking about economy, foreign relations, defense, etc. That happens fairly quickly. Step 3, crisis, matter of weeks. Once you hit crisis mode, it's like a snowball running downhill. And step 4 goes on forever, and it is called normalization. Understand it, learn it, watch for it, fight against it.
We're going to have it up on our Substack.
Well, okay, and thank you both for all your thoughts and wisdom. No, seriously, all kidding aside, I love doing this show with both of you guys, and I hope people could have the conversations that we're having and then be civil, then be humorous, then be comical. And at the end of the day, you still love the person. And I can't think of a better type of conversation to have. Go on. You should have fun with your family on the trip. Again, I encourage you to surround your family with a bubble, and no matter what you do, for protection, and listen to as much Killers music as humanly possible.
Yes.
We will see you in about 10 days, I guess. Be safe, our friend, and be safe, everybody that listens to this show. Remember, find us on Substack, Daily Cheat Sheet. Find us on YouTube at The Daily Cheat Sheet. Find us on Rumble at The Daily Cheat Sheet. Find us on Instagram at The Daily Cheat Sheet. Find us on X at TD Cheat Sheet. Find us on Truth at The Daily Cheat Sheet. Just find us. Take your friend's phone. Don't forget us to give us that 5-star review. Take a couple seconds, please, and give us a nice review if you don't mind. And that 2-star review got erased somehow. They must have, so I'm very happy about that. On that note, I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world wherever you are. God bless you all.